When it's time to begin, it's on the Rewind around with John Pollock and Wai Ting. The A-Team that makes sense of these things we see in the ring every week on TV. It's Rewind around for Monday night. Download a Tuesday morning from the Post Wrestling site. It's Rewind around for Monday night on USA Now on the John and Wai Take the Mic.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Rewind to Raw. It's John Pollock and Wai Ting. Welcome to another week at Post Wrestling.
Hey, John, how you doing?
I'm doing good.
Yeah.
Doing swell.
Any particular reason?
It's Monday. I typically like Mondays. I think Mondays sometimes get a bad rap.
Interesting. Okay.
It's a fresh start. It's a new week. You get to look ahead. It's not that bad.
I think that's why people don't like it, because they look ahead and they're like, man, I got all this stuff to do.
I always find Tuesday to be like a weird day.
Tuesdays, really?
Yeah.
Why?
It's just it doesn't have its own kind of distinction to it. You know what I mean? I feel every day of the week it has something. You know, Wednesday's you're midway through. Thursday's a very underrated day, and Friday's the end of the week. Your weekend is spoken for. Tuesday's just all by itself. It's Tuesday. What more is there to say about Tuesday?
Tuesdays used to be when Full House aired, so at least for me.
Okay.
So I would always look forward to Tuesdays for that reason.
So for 30 years, you have been empty on Tuesdays.
I mean, I think I just have residual, appreciation for Tuesday just from my childhood.
Okay. It's there. I mean, if you had to rank all your days of the week.
It was like most of the matches tonight, just there for you, huh?
Well, there was there were a lot of matches on tonight's show. A lot of people that were, look at these guys, just unabashed.
Poison Rana in the chat room saying Tuesdays are great. That is correct, of course, because Poison Rana will be hosting up next on Tuesday. So, I mean, what do you mean you have nothing to look forward to, John? Up next.
You're right. I mean, that really, it almost bleeds into Wednesday, but you're right. There's your Tuesday night staple right there. Mm-hmm. Well, did you get up to anything fun this weekend?
Oh, I'm trying to think. Yeah, I'm sure I did. Nothing notable enough that, is top of mind right now. But
we missed you on Saturday night. A few of us went out for dinner, but unfortunately, you were tied up. A very legitimate excuse, but I almost got to see you on the weekend.
Who was all there?
It was a party way on. We went to a Korean restaurant as selected by one WH Park, who also
Who's Korean.
Yes, and we were joined by Mike Murray and the great Dan the Mouth Lavransky.
Ooh,
bike and all. Yes, we got to catch up. It was a fantastic meal. Something that has never happened before was Mouth and we ended up ordering the same thing. We had ordered a bunch of stuff for the group, and then we both said we're both gonna get this. And the guy's like, "Why don't I bring you one?" It's like, okay, is it big? It's like, I think you just want one. And he brought us the one. It was a very good call. We were all pretty full by the end of this meal, and I genuinely was thankful. I was like, that guy was looking out for me. I appreciated this sentiment, because he could have just thrown us more food, and I probably would have forced myself to eat it, and then felt even worse afterwards. But nonetheless, very, very kind of this waiter.
Yeah,
not too often that you get people downselling you.
That's true. Yeah, no, I mean, clearly deserves a good Yelp review, I would say.
Maybe we always go with the negative on Yelp. Maybe I will go track this place down and leave a positive review just based on that.
Why don't you give him a shout out right now?
I don't know his name. I don't even know the name of the restaurant, to be honest.
Okay.
So,
all right, whatever.
I don't know what the name was, but the food was fantastic. It was very good. It's one of those.
Korean food usually is. You can't.
This
go
place
wrong.
has been this close to me all this time, and I've never been here. It was that kind of a place. Like a 100% would go there again.
Right on. All right.
Yes,
it's awesome.
All right. Well, this week we've got what do we have coming up? We've got
a lot, John. It's a Monday. You know, it's your thing, John. You look forward ahead. You love this. This is what you live for.
You know what I
looking
spent?
ahead.
You know what I spent a lot of hours doing over the weekend was breaking down April of 1992 and making notes for this show tomorrow. There's a lot. There's a lot. Okay, folks, I've got some book excerpts. Are you ready? Are you ready?
Excerpts. Okay, yes, please.
Yeah. We're going back to April of 1992. Wai and I will be reviewing WrestleMania VIII 8. Every kid's Roman numerals education coming out of either the Super Bowl or WrestleMania. This featuring Sid Justice against Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage against Ric Flair, where the concept was that Ric Flair was threatening to dox Miss Elizabeth and post nude photos of her if you bought the pay-per-view to get under the skin of Randy Savage.
Quite the nefarious deed from one Ric Flair here.
Yes.
Yeah.
You associate 1992 as such a kid's product, except when, you know what, business is down. We need a good revenge porn angle for everyone to buy the pay-per-view for. Guess what? They did not do such a thing on this pay-per-view, but Bobby Heenan was more than happy to look at these photos if they would appear some magical way in the Hoosier Dome.
And like with most criminal acts, you tend to solve it with a wrestling match. So we shall see if justice prevails, literally, in that match and in the main event.
Very good. That's coming up on Tuesday. Other highlights include Skinner's lone WrestleMania match, I think.
Great.
Yes.
What a way to sell it.
Money Incorporated against natural disasters.
Enough. Roddy Piper versus Bret the Hitman Hart. That's really all you need to know. I mean, Flair and Savage as well. But I mean, for me, Roddy Piper versus Bret the Hitman Hart. I'm very much looking forward to talking about that.
Yes, we will look into this. 2 blade jobs on this show, but only one person or one match got fined. Find out who was the better blade jobber on this show. I don't think people have to guess too hard. Also coming up this week, pretty loaded editions of NXT Tuesday night with their New Year's Evil card. So Poison Rana will be live Tuesday night at 10:15 Eastern Time on the Post YouTube channel. And then Wednesday night, a very big edition of Dynamite. So a lot of big wrestling coming up over the next 48 hours. On Friday, Wai and I are splitting up for one night. I will be live with John Cena. Actually, let me ask you this question. Will I be live on Friday night? Is this doable?
I think it's doable. I think we can have like 2 different streams. I think it's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, John Cena and I will be live after the Hard to Kill pay-per-view that Impact is putting on Friday night. So that will be our post-wrestling cafe show on Friday night, meaning Rewind to SmackDown is going to be free Friday night at 11 with Wai Ting and the great Kate from Montreal.
Yeah, we're going to go head-to-head and really see who wins.
Well, you will win. I think
that's probably true.
Much fewer people are watching the Friday the 13th pay-per-view on Friday. True. But yes, only 3 hours of wrestling that you two have to review this Friday, unlike this past Friday.
Well, I mean, that's too bad. But, I look forward to your show. And, those of you who don't normally listen to Rewind to SmackDown because it's in the Post Wrestling Cafe will get a chance to sample it this week with me and Kate. So I look forward to that.
And the logo that everyone gets excited when they see it come up each month. The NWA podcast will be live Saturday night with Chris, Andrew, and Nate Milton. They have a lot to discuss on the first NWA podcast of 2023. So look out for that live on the Post YouTube channel Saturday night.
Don't forget, in the Post Wrestling Cafe, we've got the latest edition of Postmarks coming out on Saturday as well. We're talking to a good friend of ours, Rory. So Rory from... I think he's from Melbourne. Don't quote me on that. I'm sorry, Rory, if that's wrong. But Rory from Australia will be on that show in the Post Wrestling Cafe feed. Also Sunday, WrestleNomics Radio. Bound to be a really, really fun year for WrestleNomics Radio this year.
Yes, they had a great show on Sunday going through, well, what we will discuss as well coming up. Some potential buyers of WWE, what makes the most sense, and breaking down this whole Vince McMahon story with Brandon and Jesse on the show, while Chris was behind the Buffalo Bills, who will be taking on Miami this weekend as the NFL playoffs begin. Are you counting down to the playoffs? Who's your team, Wai? Just say the Bills. Just go with the Bills. They're the sentimental favorite this year.
Yeah, okay. Sure. That's right. Yes.
Okay. Very excited. Are you going to watch the Super Bowl this year? Maybe.
I think it depends on the halftime show. That's about as much as I'll watch.
Who's doing it this year? Rihanna?
I don't know.
Super Bowl halftime.
I know nothing about the world besides professional wrestling, John, and I barely know anything about that.
Why am I Googling this when we have a chat room? It will be Rihanna performing at the Super Bowl.
If you want to know anything, any bit of information, just say the wrong thing. And I guarantee you 30 people will message you to let you know the truth.
Yeah, yeah. It's never a, hey, enjoyed the show, or man, you really got that match time correct. That you will never hear. It is the Yelp concept in my life.
We're guilty of it too, aren't we?
I love it. Okay, postwrestling.com is where you can get all of your latest news. Forum.postwrestling.com. You can subscribe to our channel. We are on the road to 247,000 subscribers. So if you could just bump us up, we would appreciate it. If you are the 247,000th.
247,000.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
We'll give a special prize.
I think it'll be a while before we get there.
Not if everyone just
let's work on 1,300 first. Or 13,000.
We passed 1,300. We're okay on that side. This is it's a slow and steady race that we are going on. You ready to get into some news, Way? Is there anything else? Anything else you want to get out of your system?
Not at all. Maybe
Not
the news. Okay. I'm good. My system's nice and clear.
Almost went to see a movie this weekend, Way. Almost went back to a movie theater.
What movie?
I was going to take Max to see. I looked at the movies. I was like, I want to go see a movie. What can I go watch with him? So I played him the trailer for the Puss in Boots movie. Have you seen the trailer for this at least, or heard of the movie?
I think I missed the Puss in Boots trailer.
This is a very well-known movie. So I played him the trailer. It's like, this is going to be easy. He'll love this idea. He watches it, doesn't even get through the trailer. He laughs like, I'm not going to watch this. And I was like, oh, so we're not going to the movie? No, we're not. So
clearly
did not get out. But this was going to be my return to a movie theater.
So you were interested in Puss in Boots?
No, it was more so I just wanted to go to a movie, and this was my choice of taking my 5-year-old of like what was going to be appropriate for him to see. I wasn't going to take him to see Babylon. I also had to look at length as well. I mean, 90 minutes is kind of the limit of, okay, I could get him some popcorn, and then he'll probably be wanting to play on my phone before the end of this thing, but maybe we could.
Okay. Well, I hope you find a movie that suits you soon. And shout out Denji and also One Up versus CPU for saying that they actually enjoy the show. We appreciate the positive reinforcement. See, he was questioning whether or not it would pop it up, and there you go. I did it.
Yes. Nice comments are the ones that keep on giving. I'll tell you, I do want to see this movie, Babylon. It's literally, the runtime is over 3 hours. And when I compute like getting to the theater, watching this, the trailers at the beginning, and then getting like, I'm looking at like, I've got to carve out like 5 hours of my day. Who has this time? That just is.
How long is the movie again?
It's 3 hours.
Okay, that's a long time.
Like 3 hours and change.
I mean, it depends how much you want to see the movie. And these days, like, I kind of go, like, unless you want to see the trailers, like, you can step in 15 minutes late.
I know I could, and I probably would. I don't care about what's coming up next, but it's just a long time. It's a long time. Like, imagine this movie played at 2:00. Okay, 2:00 is a reasonable time in the afternoon. Mm-hmm. But it's like I'm leaving my house by like 1:15, and if it starts at 2 with trailers and such, like, dude, I'm probably not getting home till like 6:30. That's so long. That's a huge. That's your day.
What else are you going to be doing at home? Okay, how precious is your extra hour?
I'll tell you what I would be doing. I would be going through 52 weeks of WWE stock figures like I did today and correlating them with different events they had over the past year and seeing how the stock responded to them. That's what I'd be depriving people of, that information, that knowledge, because John went to go see Babylon.
Well, thank you for
that. That will be my next news update. Here's my Babylon review.
I'm sure there'd be plenty of people that would appreciate that. Just like I'm sure they're appreciating this conversation instead of the news and Raw review right now.
I'd tell you what they would appreciate at the bottom in the comments. Surprised you didn't notice Keanu Reeves' cameo. Surprised.
What? Is that a spoiler?
No, it's not a spoiler. I don't think Keanu Reeves is in Babylon.
I mean, anyway, since we're interacting so much with the chat room, Soren says Babylon was awful, John. Don't do it.
I appreciate people's feedback, but especially when it comes to movies, I don't put any stock into other people's opinions of movies. Because I've seen so many movies that people hate that I've enjoyed, and vice versa, that people have raved about that I have not. So reviews do not impact me at all. So I think everyone can have their different opinions.
Great advice for a review podcast.
Think of all the things you wouldn't expose yourself to if people around you said, nah. What if someone told you, kids, they're not for me?
I'd respect their opinion.
That's it, but it wouldn't change your focus, your desire. Wouldn't.
Okay. Well, I'd love to hear your review whenever you get to watch this 3-hour movie.
Okay, Way's looking at his watch. He's got to get going. So let's get into the news from over the weekend. We're going to start off with just a quick discussion on Johnny Powers, who, a native of Hamilton, that, kind of like the Sharp brothers, a native of Hamilton, but a huge part of his legacy is in Japan. He was somebody that got involved in professional wrestling through, just a stream of, people that trained under Jack Wentworth in Hamilton, and then made his debut in the Detroit territory around 1960. He wrestled a lot of big names, including Bruno Sammartino during Sammartino's first run as WWF champion. He challenged Gene Kiniski for the NWA title. At one point, as a heel, managed by Bobby Davis, who is someone that has gained a lot more, I would say, support over the last couple of years when it comes to the Observer Hall of Fame as a manager that should be in there. One of the all-time great managers that was forever linked with Buddy Rogers, especially. But, when you think about Johnny Powers, it wasn't just wrestling, but also he ended up running the Buffalo territory along with Pedro Martinez, who owned it. And they ended up branching out into Ohio and syndicating the program, which, I mean, if this tells you the top star, their show was called Championship Wrestling with Johnny Powers. So it'd be like Friday Night SmackDown with Roman Reigns, okay? It was like, this guy was not leaving this territory. So, and they, this is in the 70s, and they were syndicating it into Japan, into Mexico, different markets. And he made his first tour of Japan in 67. And the big link was, he wrestled Inoki on multiple occasions. And then when Inoki had formed New Japan, it was Baba that had the pipeline with All Japan to the NWA and access to the NWA champion. For Inoki, they did not have that relationship, and therefore Inoki had to come up with different concepts, whether it was bringing in real, Olympians and presenting himself as that big star. But when it came to a world championship, that's when Inoki essentially bought the NWF title, which was the title in Buffalo, and won it off of Johnny Powers in 1973. And this is when Inoki and New Japan had outright bought the company. And Inoki held that belt for over a year before he lost it to Tiger Jeet Singh. But Johnny Powers was always very protected in New Japan, and to the point that when it was Inoki's 30th anniversary of wrestling, they came up with this concept called the Greatest 18, which later became a championship, but it was of the greatest 18 competitors, with Johnny Powers being one of those 18. But Powers also had involvement in the IWA promotion that Eddie Einhorn had originally launched and later left, and then also was involved training at Sully's gym for a time with Sweet Daddy Siki, and then retired from professional wrestling in 1982, but was involved in lots of different promotional outfits outside of wrestling. He even tried to kind of get in on what was MMA before Ontario could promote MMA in 2007, when it was not legalized in the province. He put on an event that was basically submission wrestling and taekwondo, but, was also paying attention to that as well. A very, colorful character as well. There has been, you can see this article here from the Hamilton Spectator where they interviewed his wife, and, sadly he had a collapsed lung recently, which had led to pneumonia, and had also talked about suffering from, like dementia had started to set in on him as well. So he was 79 years of age and had actually died on December 30th. So the news was kind of delayed getting out before it was reported over the weekend by Greg Oliver at Slam Wrestling, who also has a very good story on Johnny Powers. So he was like a very, influential figure when it came to especially a Canadian that made a fairly decent sized impact in Japan, specifically with New Japan. So if you want to learn more about him, we do have a story up on the site, and there is some interviews with him out there. But of course, a lot of that footage, especially from that Buffalo period, a lot of that stuff, it's very hard to come by when you're talking about that generation ago. WWE and Vince McMahon, not so much anything too much new to report on. And you guys did a great job kind of breaking it down on Friday, Wai, but just looking over this past weekend and a lot of the names that have kind of emerged as potential buyers of this company. Are there any thoughts you have just in terms of what logically makes a fit for WWE, and maybe putting aside just like the price tag attached to it? Because I think if we look at just sheer dollars that can be thrown at WWE, the Saudi Arabia Public Investment Fund would probably have the most liquid finances to outbid anybody, with like Amazon a distant second there. But in terms of just like what you see as a fit, if a sale were to go through, do any of them stand out above the rest?
Comcast, absolutely. I mean, they're already in bed with them with of course Raw and USA, and also Peacock. They've been paying them a lot throughout their entire relationship with them. And you stand to question whether, I mean, we've always discussed, I'm sure we've always discussed like the possibility of them no longer paying these fees every few years, and as they continue to escalate, and just outright buying it. I mean, if they had made that decision years ago, they probably would have ended up breaking even maybe by now. So I think they're probably the front runners, in my opinion. If there's a sale at all, probably the lack of sale might be the real front runner. But I mean, if
that's a possibility,
if you're selecting from the list that seems to be, being paraded around, I would say that. But you never know. There could be a sort of a left field option. I mean, there are some options out there like a Disney where I don't know how well like a WWE would fit in their portfolio. Yes, of course, you could change the product to be even more PG and suitable. And maybe it would make sense like in ways that I can't imagine right now. But
Disney's a real interesting one when you give it a lot of thought, because the immediate reaction is that one of WWE being in that Disney brand. And, Bob Iger is coming back to Disney, and he has pulled off some massive deals when it comes to acquiring like intellectual property, which is one of WWE's big selling features. This is not the level of, Lucasfilm or Marvel, but it's still of that, level of deals that Bob Iger has pulled off in the past. Disney as well, like, famously with Bob Iger, they got very cold feet at one point when they were discussing like the idea of buying Twitter, and just realizing that we do not want to get involved in this at the end, and being turned off by that. And for all of these companies, the idea of, and looking at Disney, what have they said over the past week when it comes to Dana White? Silence. And if you're looking at, we are just hoping to navigate and get through this, the idea of getting into bed with Vince McMahon, to me is, how much is Vince McMahon going to play a factor in some of these people? He is now front and center with these sales talks. He is back on their board of directors. And is that going to give a concern to them? And the relationship they have with UFC, it's an interesting one in the sense of, on one side, it's, well, if we are looking at purchasing WWE, would we rather raise enough that we're even talking about buying UFC from Endeavor? Or the other side is just, we're happy to kind of rent the UFC product. It would be quite a different task to be buying one of these companies that we maybe don't want to be so attached to in that sense. But
do they own any sports leagues?
Disney, they do. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I don't believe, like, not any like
Chat room,
sports
let us
teams.
know if there's an answer to that. But I mean, nothing, I guess, that notable that I would recall. I'm just trying to think if they have in their portfolio something similar. What's the most likely, what's the biggest comparison point that they might have to WWE?
I mean, it's like, by extension, it's like ESPN's relationship with the UFC, but that's not an ownership stake that they have in it. But, they certainly have seen the success the UFC has brought to ESPN Plus, but it's also like this, it is still like WWE and UFC, as much as they have become like these targets, they are still on the fringes of entertainment and sports to many people. And I think over this last week, and talking about this coverage that Vince McMahon and Dana White have received, or rather the lack of attention they've received, it reinforces that idea that these are still people on the fringe that are not of the same kind of coverage that we warrant to an NFL or an NBA, if your equivalent was at the center of some of these stories.
Right. So people in the chat room, as I was looking this up myself too, are mentioning that they used to own, or do they still own the Anaheim Angels? Let's see here.
You'd have to look that up. I don't know the exact.
Company sold the Angels to agreed to sell the Mighty Ducks and Disney. Okay, so believe they used to own. Anyway, so that's Disney. I think Endeavor is obviously very interesting. They own the UFC, and
I think Endeavor is the one that, again, if you're looking at this strategically, and that's going to be a big part of this is, again, if you are WWE and it is sheer shareholder value and what is the most money we can get, you're probably looking at at Saudi Arabia as a realistic option to sell this to. But if you're also looking at where do we place this company that in 5 years it is going to grow this company's market cap and grow this business in a major way through all of the different vertical integrations, Endeavor and Disney to me would represent the strongest options. And I see Disney as a more distant option than Endeavor. Endeavor they largely had the UFC through the pandemic to get them through some very, very choppy waters. They have seen firsthand the success that UFC was, a sale that a lot of people questioned in 2016 that today is viewed as a bargain. But again, WWE is a different animal, and I would say it is less of an accepted part of like the sports scene or diet of your fan base than even UFC is. That it is, UFC is something that if there's something major, it can be one of the top stories on SportsCenter. WWE is not going to be that. It's something different, but it's also something that I think Endeavor is very open to, and there are a lot of parallels with UFC rather than comparing this to another sports league.
In some ways, like, is it not even closer in their wheelhouse, considering how much of how much of they're firmly in place in Hollywood
as a talent agency, you have the connection with Endeavor and Dwayne Johnson. Like there's a lot of reasons to look at Endeavor as a lot of value attached to it as well. Your streaming options like a Netflix and Amazon, it would really come down to first of all, just the idea of like Netflix getting into something in an ownership capacity, and this would be closer to live sports for them and how engaged they would want to be. Netflix is tough to me because you are not just buying programming. You're not even just buying like an F1 where it's X amount of races a year. Like this is a whole year-round thing that like programming is one aspect of it. It's a merchandise house. It's a live event touring company. It's pay-per-view. It's all these different facets that, yes, you have these departments that can run these things, but it's something like Netflix has never dealt with it's
labor laws, related to like entertainment or pseudo sport, that they have. I would assume zero knowledge or expertise in. Is that something is that a headache they would want to take on?
Yes, and again, if you are Vince McMahon and you go with the position that he wants to put himself into a position where I am needed to run this company, like that's certainly something you have to look at here. Like what group is going to have that belief that a Vince McMahon needs to be front and center in this whole thing, because you have to imagine that is the play here. Like, Vince McMahon is not looking to sell this thing off and then go back to his quote unquote retirement either.
Now, does he have a responsibility though? Like, I mean, when we're talking about a public traded company, of course, the responsibility is for him to take the best offer. If the best offer happens to not include him in charge, does he have to take that?
He doesn't have to, but there is, there is always like that fiduciary duty of, but
so why wouldn't he have to?
You could argue, though, like, he pretty much put out the gauntlet last week that I need to be involved or I'm not going to approve any of these deals, regardless of what's offered. Like, if there was some, if you're looking at this company going for $7 or $8 billion and someone throws out a number on the higher side of that, and Vince McMahon was saying, I'm not going to approve any of this. You could have shareholder revolt if there is a... if Vince McMahon is presenting himself as a restriction towards a sale that is going to be beneficial to all of these shareholders, it's an interesting dance that he needs to play in all of this. But ultimately, like, he is the controlling shareholder. And then if as well, like, the question that's come up, and this would, I think, probably be limited to the Saudi Arabia option, is enough money that could take this thing back private as well. Like, a lot of,
like, even if it was own, even if Endeavor made a play, I mean, don't you think that would, because they're not like, are they a public company? I don't believe
Endeavor is a public company. Yes.
Oh, Endeavor is, okay.
Yes.
But their business with the UFC, how much of that is public?
There's aspects of, like, Endeavor, like, UFC is like a subsidiary of Endeavor. So it's like UFC itself is not a public company, but Endeavor
so the WWE would be operated similarly.
Yeah, in theory, like, WWE is public. So, I mean, buying this,
if Endeavor bought WWE wouldn't have to be as public with their information as they are now. Is that correct?
No, like, they would be buying, like, the controlling, like shares that would have the ownership of the company. But as long as, like, you could spend enough that you could buy all your shares back, but that requires a lot of capital. And that's why the Saudi Arabia option would probably be the only one that would be able to finance such a deal. When you're talking about the billions attached to this investment fund. And that, like, you can't take that off the table either. Like, we're talking about, just to clarify for my stupid brain,
just when we're talking about people, this list that MJF has so kindly tweeted out, sorry, not this one, this one here. We're talking about just not necessarily buying the company outright. Maybe they are buying outright, or maybe they're just buying, at the least, controlling shares.
Yes. I mean, there would still be the shareholder portion.
So can we rule out some sort of joint deal?
No, because a lot of these companies, it's like, they may need financing to pull off a deal like this. If you're looking in the $6 to $8 billion range, and that's why they stated in the employee meeting on Friday that, the options are a sale, a merger, or even going private. They did mention that in the meeting. So, like, a Comcast, for instance, which, the Comcast one, I know Brandon Thurston has been more kind of pessimistic about Comcast buying this company, but it all comes down to how valuable, like, especially Raw is to this company, and how much money would be going to WWE in these next rounds of negotiations. Like, that they are going to try to retain Raw, and would it be that catastrophic to lose Raw that the idea of buying the company becomes a realistic option for them? Because it's not just Raw, but also when the network rights come up with Peacock, like, losing all of these things when those deals come due, it can affect several aspects of your business.
You also get to take SmackDown from a competitor that's, currently right now with Fox, and maybe you get to put it, in a beneficial time slot on one of your own networks.
It's going to do better than Young Rock on NBC.
Yeah. So, I mean, just thinking about, like, what Raw and SmackDown combined would be worth in 2024. I mean, do you have a ballpark, John, of like, or at least like a rough estimate, you know, like it?
Well, today we're looking at like the average. It's around like 465 million for both shows on an annual basis. Mm-hmm. So I would imagine like they are shooting for over like 600 to 700. I would imagine just for Raw and SmackDown. I would imagine
talking an offer, like throwing numbers out there just like blindly right now, like or not blindly, your educated guess of like what is WWE valued at right now? Is that information out there?
I mean, they're valued at just under $6 billion.
Right. So you would think,
like, you think about this,
it
like
makes sense to buy.
If you're looking at say $650 million over a 5-year deal, like at a point you're thinking like, why don't we just go all the way in and buy this thing? And then in 5 years, we don't have to go through this again, where rights might be that much more. Everyone's looking at these rights and is there going to be some casualties here? I don't believe WWE is going to be one of them. AEW could, but if you're WWE, you're like, to me, like they had been smooth sailing until this Vince wrench was thrown into things. And, because of the sale, it was not the curveball maybe some expected that this was detrimental to the stock. It's been the opposite effect. But it is something where if you're some of these companies, like this is viewed on the outside as a power play, that there is a lot of instability, and what are you buying? As opposed to a post-Vince company that to me was a much more attractive company on paper than having this volatile figure in the middle of it that very likely wants to assume a power position wherever this company is sold to. And he's putting himself front and center to make sure that he is taken care of in a sale.
The thing is, though, like I think if I was one of these companies, these major companies, is that much of a concern? Are they that concerned about negative PR coming off of Vince McMahon? The bottom line is that when Vince was in control, this company was still very profitable, the most profitable it's ever been. And is that ultimately what they care about?
It's to me the difference between, again, like licensing content versus like buying it outright. That this is very much, now you are in the business with Vince McMahon, and this is your business. It's not like even ESPN, who just gets to put out, hey, we just run the UFC content. You can go refer to them.
And ultimately ESPN will be fine. ABC will be fine. Disney will be fine, right? How much is the public really pushing these stories?
Yeah, it's something that I do believe these companies do take into account, those factors. I don't think that that's ultimately going to be enough that would sour them if they were wanting this company. But I do think, like, being with Vince McMahon, like it is someone you're getting into business with, that I think like there are enough, caution flags up that it is going to make people second guess wanting to be in business with this person, and what problems this can bring to us down the road. Like, it's not just like if you're Endeavor, for instance, okay, look at what Ari Emanuel did after the Jamal Khashoggi murder, okay?
Yep.
And now you're in business with a company that is very much in bed with the government of Saudi Arabia, that is making money off of multiple shows per year, that you are now going to have to absorb and now be at the forefront of.
I'm very curious to know if you asked Ari Emanuel today. Like, I mean, obviously, like on the record, you'd probably say he wouldn't take it, man. But man, I just... like if you ask Vince, certainly he'd probably be like really glad that he took that offer and that they didn't jeopardize it.
If you are looking at the Saudi Arabia option, what do you feel the short term? Of course, I think it would be largely of fans very, very negative. Do you feel it would be something detrimental long term in terms of fans, like that being their breaking point? Or do you feel it is something that ultimately people would not feel good about, but that they're not giving up this product that they enjoy?
I think the answer is no. And I hate to think. I don't even know if it's necessarily thick and lowly of people. Like, it's just, I think wrestling, it'd be one thing if it'd be like a movie or something, like, one particular pay-per-view, or I don't know, maybe even a team, like, but I think because wrestling is so ingrained into people's just like lives, or like wrestling fans' lives, and the fact that the WWE largely still very much is a monopoly right now, you're going to get the hardcores that I think will for them that'll be their breaking point. But for a lot of other people that have stuck around through all the other things that could have been justified as breaking points, the vast majority, I don't think they'll either not notice or they won't care.
Yeah. I think people would be very naive to dismiss that option.
And they'll do everything they can to minimize that news publicly, like meaning on their product at least.
Yeah, but I look at that one as where can you probably get the biggest price tag, and where would Vince McMahon be most insulated in terms of an ownership group? Like, that's it. Like, the government of Saudi Arabia is not relocating to Stanford or running a wrestling company. They are
investing. Basically.
They are investing. Here are the keys, and you guys run it. Like, that is going to be a very hands-off ownership, would be my strong assumption. And that very much benefits. The trade-off?
But what is like ultimately what does Saudi Arabia want out of it?
Saudi Arabia wants a commercial for Saudi Arabia.
Exactly. So how much of that integration is going? Would you potentially see on a daily WWE product, not even just twice a year?
I would certainly think like that would be an aspect of the programming. Yes. Like more events in Saudi Arabia. I don't think you're looking at 2 a year. I think they're happening a lot more frequently.
At that point, do you jeopardize your partnerships with the networks and advertisers?
Well, that becomes a very difficult question to answer, where these deals come up and like a Saudi Arabia owned WWE, they're seeking these US TV deals, and it's not the same thing as Live Golf, but they've had, they have their issues with the PGA, but it's also the Saudi Arabia funding that I think has made a lot of these broadcasters squeamish about getting into business with them. Is like when these TV deals come up, like maybe a Comcast is more than willing to, WWE is a proven product. It's not as though it's something that is a startup like Live Golf, but now you are talking about this ownership that it is going to be, I think, more difficult to sell some of these rights, especially if you're talking about programming that is promoting a government that has a long history of human rights abuses that are going to be very sensitive to some of these companies that do not want to have that attachment.
We got a couple people in the chat room reacting with WrestleMania in Saudi Arabia. Guys, we're not that far off from that even right now. Like what do we have? Like we have 2 events a year that profit beyond what WrestleMania makes. These Saudi Arabia events are, like, in terms of grandeur, the same as WrestleMania. Other than they
make more off one Saudi Arabia show than WrestleMania is going to make for them. I mean, It would be very much within their ability to stay. 50 million for a show, we'll give you 75 million.
All they have to do is just change the name from Crown Jewel to WrestleMania and be the same.
It's done. Anyway, this is going to be a story that is going to be one to follow, of course, throughout 2023. But a lot of these companies, like, you can make arguments for and against. We didn't even get into Amazon. Amazon's a really interesting one as well. And the idea of Raw and or SmackDown going to a streamer, or keeping one out there that you can still make, you could still license Raw to a Comcast while putting SmackDown onto a Netflix or Amazon. Like, these are all options on the table. You don't have to bring everything in-house if you're Amazon. You could still have, rights that you can still benefit off of this brand of selling your network rights or selling at least one of your flagship shows.
What do you think are the percentage chances of Warner Brothers Discovery getting in the game?
Very, very minimal. I do not see them. Maybe in another time period that would have been one to look at, to be interested, of them saying, hey, wrestling has worked for us, and now we're going to get the bigger brand in WWE. I don't think they're in that position now. I would have to, I don't think any of these you can put at 0%, but Warner Brothers Discovery would be very low.
Which is, of course, good for AEW.
Good for AEW, but at the same time, why are Warner Brothers Discovery not going to be very active in this? And what is left for AEW? I mean, if you go by, people, lamenting if like the NBA is brought back or not, like that could be good for AEW if money is freed up. Like they do need programming, and in the grand scope of things, AEW is a steal when it comes to what you are paying out. So AEW does fit into all of this. There could be good or bad attached to AEW. They're much more of a wild card. I think given all of these recent changes and what money is earmarked for them. All right, let's just zip through a few more of these. BOLA went down over the weekend with Speedball Mike Bailey winning the tournament and defeating Konosuke Takeshita in the final after previous matches with Jordan Grace, Shun Skywalker, and Brian Keith. And it sounded like night one. It sounded like both nights were really great shows, but I saw a lot of people raving about Konosuke Takeshita and Michael Oku on the first night. So that sounded like a match definitely worth going out of your way to see when it's available. But the big surprise was night two, where Jonathan Gresham, Oku, Player Uno, Kevin Blackwood, and SB Kento were met by the Jericho Appreciation Society coming out, and it sounded like it was an incredible scene. And I know that you called it, Way. We would get Chris Jericho and SB Kento in a ring together in 2023, and it happened. I imagine
a really strange, likely or unlikely somebody submitted.
Yeah. I didn't see any like fan videos of it, but I can't imagine what the reaction was when they heard Judas and Jericho coming out at the end. But that was a really cool surprise, and it sounds like they did a really good job of keeping it under wraps.
It's really cool, and I mean, Chris Jericho is incredibly smart when it comes to doing kind of out of the box things like these. It gets them a whole lot of online buzz, even though like I really at this point question how many people even go to seek out PWG, like the several months or weeks that you have to wait to catch it. But really this sort of online buzz and discussions like the one we're having are, pretty much all the value that they could probably, be grateful to have.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it's if you are going to buy a digital download or dare I say a DVD in 2023, if you're a wrestling fan, PWG is probably what you're down to at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So coming up on the weekend of January 21st and 22nd, 2 shows at Yokohama Arena. New Japan has put out their card for the 6 singles matches between LIJ and Kongo. Yes, Way, you are going to get Tadasuke in one-on-one action against Bushi, Hiromu Takahashi and Hajime Ohara, Sonata against Manabu Soya, and then the 2 big ones, Shingo Takagi against Katsuhiko Nakajima and Tetsuya Naito against Keno. There will also be a bunch of undercard matches, including Okada and Togi Makabe teaming up against Kaito Kiyomiya and Yoshiki Inamura, putting the GHC and IWGP champions together. And then some multi-man tags, but the big attraction are the 6 singles matches and the main 2, which I would say are going to be tremendous matches, especially Takagi and Nakajima. But Naito too. I'm sure Naito is going to have his. I don't think this will be a shirt-wearing Naito for this match with Keno.
Yeah, probably not. No. So the fact that they're going so full on with this Kongo versus LIJ, suggests to me that they might be holding back like big singles matches for like your Tanahashis and your Okadas for future iterations of this. So does it tell you how long that they plan on having this relationship annually?
I mean, maybe they're just going to do it once a year. It was somewhat surprising last year that you did this show. It was a big success and nothing following it up during the year. Like I thought we'd maybe get 1 or 2 Noah reps in the G1. Like there was nothing throughout the year. So maybe it's just going to be annually they go back and do these. So we will see how this does. It's worth noting this is a separate pay-per-view. So a New Japan World subscription is not going to cover this show. The next day is the Great Muta final bye-bye. The final bye-bye before the final bye-bye in February at the Tokyo Dome. This will be on ABEMA, Wrestle Universe, and Fight TV. And we have the opponents for Muta, Sting, and Darby Allin. They will take on Akira, Hakushi, and Naomichi Marufuji.
Does he go by Hakushi normally these days?
Jinsei Shinzaki, mainly, yeah.
Right, but he's being advertised as Hakushi.
He's being advertised as Hakushi, yes.
Yeah, I was just kind of curious if there's a reason for that.
Yes. Do you like this match, Way? Is this
Yeah. I don't know what Jinsei looks like these days, like in ring. I mean,
He looks good, man. He does not look that far off from what you would remember of him, like even in like the 90s. Like he looks very good.
Yeah. Okay. So I mean, I'm kind of excited for it. You know, I think Darby will be awesome. Like in there, watching him with Jinsei Shinsaki. That to me would be a lot of fun. And really, just I think these matches. Like I'm expecting a lot of emotion. Like just I think a great connection with the crowd and a lot of kind of like first time meetings between people that you would never expect to meet in the ring. So that it has my curiosity that way.
Yes. It should be something. Sting and Hakushi in a ring together, Darby and Marufuji together. Muta, yeah. Hopefully Muta's in a better mood than he was at the Tokyo Dome.
I'm guessing he's going to get the pinfall for this one.
I would think that's a pretty good bet for this one. I imagine Akira is here for a reason. And then the rest of the card, it's got some interesting matches. Kaito Kiyomiya teaming with your tag champion Sugiura and Satoshi Kojima, as well as Dr. Wagner Jr., as WH puts it, against Keno, Nakajima, Masakatsu Funaki, and Manabu Soya. Kazushi Sakuraba against Hideki Suzuki in a martial arts rules match, which could be... That
sounds cool.
It'll be something different for sure. Jake Lee, who's just come into Noah, is teaming with Jack Morris and Anthony Green against Masa Kitamiya, Daiki Inaba, and Yoshiki Inomura as well. Timothy Thatcher and Masaki Mochizuki. It's a good card here. Mm-hmm. Noah, as I've said, I think Noah, these next big shows with Muta, the key is having some really interesting stuff going on that's going to keep this audience that's kind of checking them out for Muta, and hopefully enough that they might stick around. And if they're getting Wrestle Universe, let it roll over. I would certainly want to shoot some big things on these two shows with Muta to maximize this audience checking things out. Ratings, really quickly. SmackDown, this was your Comeback Down to Earth show after the Cena one, dropping 14% in viewers to 2,257,000 and a 0.53 in the demo. If you compare it to 2 weeks ago and factor out the Cena show, they were only down 5% in viewers and down 4 in the demo. So this was not as far off from a normal SmackDown, going against both the NBA and with the Speaker of the House controversy. Cable News was doing very well on Friday night. Rampage, this is just for the first hour, did 551,000 viewers, a 0.15 in the demo. Both numbers up from the previous week, although this wasn't as high as 2 weeks ago, which had the Trios Casino Battle Royale, $300,000 over the top rope tag team Battle Royale as the big hook. But they were 30th among cable originals, big increase in 18 to 34 from the previous week. But then Battle of the Belts started, and pretty much 1 in 4 people tuned out of the show when Battle of the Belts began. They dropped 26% in viewers, 27% in the demo for the second hour, which did 409,000 viewers, 0.11 in the demo, finishing 58th among cable originals. It was the second lowest Battle of the Belts ever. So they did top the last one in October. So chalk that up to Jeff Jarrett at Battle of the Belts. And yeah, it's... I mean, the way they stack these cards, it really is like top heavy, like with Danielson and Mox leading the show off, trying to capitalize off of that SmackDown audience. And then, I mean, as much as I enjoyed Kip Sabian versus Orange Cassidy, I don't know how many people were looking forward to it at the very end. I'm curious to see like what the quarter hours look like, like what was Battle of the Belts basically working with coming off a Rampage. Yeah, my impression would be, sloping downward throughout that hour. I mean, you're getting later on a Friday night. I don't think that was great for them. And more importantly, this is a concept that when you go and look at the figures of the first show, which if you remember was on its own night, it wasn't even piggybacking off of anything. People were into this concept when it began, but
there was curiosity. Yeah.
Yes. And then they slowly learned that these were shows that are very disposable.
They're an extra hour of Rampage. I mean, the concept is all the titles are on the line, but I mean, does it tell you something about how much people value the titles? I guess like title matches on their own probably don't mean a whole lot if you can't take the challengers seriously. And on this particular card, I mean, there were no real serious contenders.
No, and I would say it wasn't even as strong a lineup as the Rampage that preceded it. So it's it's an hour of programming that they have, but we have long figured out like what Battle of the Belts are and what level of stars they're going to put on these shows. And this is kind of the level. They're not putting what would be an example of just, a Moxley and Hangman's a bad example because there's no title involved, but they're not putting that caliber of a match on Battle of the Belts.
Right.
And then last thing here is the lineup for the next two nights. New Year's Evil has Braun Breaker against Grayson Waller, a 20-woman battle royal, which will include the likes of Jakara Jackson and Danny Palmer among the 20.
I'm surprised they have 20 people.
They do have 20. The Creed brothers against Indus Sher, Tony D'Angelo against Dijak. The winner of that will get a future shot at Wes Lee for the NXT North American title. Charlie Dempsey against Hank Walker and Pretty Deadly in a gauntlet match. I can't wait to see another gauntlet after tonight, where the winners, if Pretty Deadly can go through the gauntlet, they will get a rematch with the New Day. And Dynamite on Wednesday, a loaded show. They're at over 8,200 tickets out, according to WrestleTix. Death Triangle and the Elite in their ladder match in the final match of the Best of 7 series. Moxley and Hangman. Bryan Danielson against Takeshita. Jamie Hayter and Britt Baker against Saraya and Tony Storm. Jungle Hook against Lee Moriarty and Big Bill. And Jericho Appreciation Society will be on the show to recap BOLA.
Do we see Mercedes?
Let's say, I'll say no. What do you think?
I'll say yes.
Okay. It's possible. Like, you could certainly do the angle early in the show where if they do an angle where Tony Storm gets taken out, everyone will know what that means. And if you put this later in the show, I think like you will.
If she's not coming, they have to let people know as soon as possible, if not even offline somehow.
I would say they should have done the angle already and let it build up, but we will certainly know. I will say this, okay? If Mercedes did not show up on Wednesday, there is no justification for throwing that boss line in there with Britt Baker because so many people read into that, and I don't know why you put that in there when you don't have the payoff.
Agreed.
Raw from the Legacy Arena in Birmingham, Alabama. So Monday Night Football, the regular season is done, but because of the flex schedule that ESPN has, they get a playoff game next Monday. So there is NFL next week, and it's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Dallas Cowboys, and it's a playoff game. So they will have some heavy competition next week, and we're going against the college football championship tonight. So the timing works out well that it should be clear in 2 weeks when they have the big 30th Raw, the 30th anniversary show.
Okay.
Yes. Will there be any board of directors members showing up on the 30th anniversary of Raw?
Oh goodness. I don't think so. Like I really feel like Vince must be self-aware enough to know that his presence attached.
Are you
to the
kidding?
company,
Dude, the guy put himself on TV after the first scandal from the Wall Street Journal.
Very true, very true. But I mean, like mentions of him coming back to creative were met with negative reaction from the share, like to the stock. I have to imagine like he's aware enough that like he's better served certainly off camera, if not attached at all to this company.
Welcome to Raw. And I want to get something off my chest about Manjeet Singh and this investigation. Ignace Lahoud, come on out here.
He could sit cross-legged on the ramp.
God. He could just recite the emails.
Who knows like what like Vince doing, like in his mansion in Connecticut these past few months, how he's changed. He could be a totally different person. Maybe he'll just burn it all.
Maybe he can't log into Peacock, and that's why he wants to initiate the sale.
To what? Like
somewhere that's more user friendly for him.
Like a VHS company,
We're going to reimagine our digital strategy. We're going analog.
I'd love to see it. It's funny. The WWE Network on VHS.
Main event had Odyssey Jones beating Akira Tozawa and Mustafa Ali beating Von Wagner, a match that I am absolutely going to sit down and watch this week.
Hey, if you missed main event, you missed Shelton Benjamin's speech on his 20th year anniversary.
Yeah, why didn't he get any... the 20th.
Well, you got to subtract a few years. You got to subtract a few years in there for New Japan and whatnot.
Oh, I was I mean, he had a gap in there, but hey, that was He has been back for quite a while. It's like 6 years since they brought him back.
Mm-hmm.
Kevin Patrick opens up the show, and I swear to God, he says, there's no better time to be a WWE fan. There's no better time, Wai.
I'd love to know
this is when you want to jump on board, okay? We've got a man with a laundry list of allegations against him. He's back in the company. It's a great time.
I'd argue 1992 was pretty damn good.
Dude, they were in a horrendous set of scandals when this WrestleMania went down in 1992, which we will go into.
I guess I meant creatively, or at least like with that one particular show, at least.
Kevin Owens is out, and he goes to address Roman Reigns, but is interrupted by JBL and Baron Corbin. They insult Alabama, and they state that Reigns is Georgia and Kevin Owens is Alabama. A loser. Appreciate him explaining that for everybody.
I guess there's some football feud between the two.
Well, yeah, Georgia was in the championship game tonight. Alabama was not.
See.
Owens just buries his head in boredom in the corner, and JBL gets angry, calling him a snowflake, and asks, "What are you, in a food coma? You goofy Canadian." Owens makes fun of them, and it sets up a match. No Cody clock, but we did get a graphic promoting his latest recovery video that is coming up later in the show. I would have liked the clock to know when this video was coming.
I mean, unless it was going to main event the thing, they probably didn't want you tuning out.
I guess not. So Corbin was Corbin in this match. Owens landed a swanton after the break, took the deep six, but then surprised Corbin with a stunner in 8:41. And for the post-match, Jey Uso shows up, and Owens goes after him. Jimmy and Solo show up, and he gets super kicked into the timekeeper's area, but comes back, waffling them with chair shots. And I like this one part. The Usos are fleeing, and there's Solo, who wants to continue fighting, and they hold him back. They didn't let Solo show any cowardice here. Let the Usos be the ones to pull him back. But that was a nice touch, as they get a lot of stuff right with Solo Sikoa and how he projects that enforcer character.
Very much so. He's a call-up. I've said this a lot, but, he's a call-up that's come from NXT that does not at all feel like a rookie. They are not portraying him as sort of like the underling who has to prove himself. He's coming in, and he's been playing very effectively the heavy of the group. He's the special attraction, the guy that they, that is their secret weapon, essentially, and they've been very effective at doing that.
In the back, Pierce meets with the Bloodline, and they're about to leave the building when Pierce informs them that I hadn't booked Raw yet, so we're going to have a tag team turmoil match, and the winners are going to run the gauntlet in the third hour, and they'll get to face you guys in the future. And then they go to leave, and they say, well, Solo, you have a match tonight with Dolph Zigglert. And Solo is probably thinking, who? And the Usos want to stay, but Pierce tells them they have to leave. And Owens is not allowed to touch Solo. So we never see Kevin Owens again on this show.
He was asked to leave, wasn't he?
Yes, they explain that, he could not get involved in Solo Sikoa's match, or else he would be in trouble. So, no more appearances from Kevin Owens on the show, and Solo is Solo.
Yeah. Just a way to, make some matches for the rest of the card, tease up the tag team turmoil thing, and also reminds you of Roman versus Kevin Owens. That's about it.
In case you forgot, Alexa Bliss attacked Bianca Belair last week, and Kevin Patrick gives us an update of all-time injury announcements. Kevin Patrick comes back, and he looks all somber, and he said, we do have an update on Bianca Belair. She has multiple stitches.
Yeah, did you see them? That's legit.
Oh, were they? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
She does.
Well, I'm not calling him a liar. I'm just stating like the drama of all of this. I mean, we hear like, neck contusions and broken bones.
Have you had stitches?
I have had stitches.
Come on, that's not fun.
Yeah, I got multiples when I was like younger. I like fell off stuff. Yeah.
Ooh.
I haven't had stitches in a long time though.
I hope you don't.
Yeah. Well, Bliss has been fined an undisclosed amount, and then she shows up and stands on the desk and said that Belair had to go run and hide because she's afraid. She is the face of evil and doesn't feel bad about what she did to Bianca. She hasn't felt like this in a long time. She's finally taken control. I have the whole world in my hands, and I will tear more scars into Belair's face and take her title. We get the flicker And there is Uncle Howdy. Well, first we see a black and white playground, and Uncle Howdy appears on the screen asking if she feels in charge. And then Uncle Howdy walked out into the arena, and we went to commercial. And that was it. Now, I add the fact that if you were someone going into Raw tonight, from Friday onwards, they promoted 2 things on this show. What is next for Austin Theory? And Alexa Bliss explains her actions. So this was like the most pushed thing on the show.
Mm-hmm.
This.
I mean, joke's on you for, assuming any preview for a WWE show is actually worth anything.
I set aside 3 hours because I wanted to hear about these actions because they resulted in multiple stitches, and I want to know what Bliss has to say for herself.
Yeah. This was, like many of the Bray Wyatt segments we've seen since his re-debut, painfully disappointing and completely unsatisfying. I mean, they're moving this thing at anything to do with Uncle Howdy. It's such a snail's pace that it's really, really become pretty disinteresting to me already for a long, long time now. They think that simply seeing this thing is enough of satisfaction for its audience who, might have waited several days based off of a preview, or for a live audience. It's not. Everybody, we know what this dude looks like. We know it's likely Bo Dallas underneath it. It's just, it means nothing. There's no real story advancement. I guess the most we got was Alexa kind of so this is not her full evil form. It's just sort of the transitional evil form before she becomes even more evil under Uncle Howdy.
This is her evil face.
It's her Super Saiyan level 1 evil. And then she's going to advance to level 2, presumably in the future.
Yep. And then we faded to Mountain Dew Pitch Black and came back from break. Bayley had a match against Michin. And Bayley has a message for Becky Lynch that she might be jealous because you don't have friends like me, and makes fun of her losing to Bayley. And she gives Sky and Kai the night off and sends them to the back. So I, like everyone, just assumed, okay, here's the overconfident heel. She has gotten rid of her backup, and Michin's going to get her big win here. No, Bayley prevailed here without any help. Michin missed a cannonball in the corner, and then Bayley used a backslide and put her feet on the rope for leverage in 808 as Michin fans were left with heartbreak.
Pretty cold match, Michin, they haven't done a whole lot with, I have to say. They put her in matches. They let us know that she goes drinking with these guys. That's about the extent.
They really had her back here, didn't they?
Isn't there an issue when you're the only basis of your friendship is that you guys you like alcohol together? I mean, that's not that bad, I suppose. I hope they have other things that they have in common.
Maybe their new group name will be Intervention.
It could be. That'd be quite I'm surprised that's not taken yet.
Hey guys, do you think that alcohol is what's keeping us all bonded together? What are we if not for alcohol?
Yeah. Can they stand each other without?
AJ.
Yeah. But clearly, I think she's still very much looking for her own character. And I think you see it in her in-ring, performances. They seem to me she's kind of lacking in a bit of confidence in there. I've seen her better than I've seen than she's displayed in the WWE thus far. But this thing plus the angle that we're going to talk about with her makes me wonder if they're gearing her up for a heel turn potentially.
Yes. When you don't click as a babyface, heel turn
tends to be the solution. Yeah.
Johnny Gargano is hurt. They stated he has a grade 2 AC sprain, and he did put out a comment that he injured himself at the Toronto house show back on the 30th. So he said
Toronto is a pretty significant place.
Highs and lows in Toronto for Johnny Gargano. He said, the medical team is going to protect me from myself for a bit, but you better believe I'm going to do everything I can to get back in that ring so I can be that guy you all know. Just let me be in that Rumble. So it doesn't sound like it's too serious if he's hoping to be there in a couple of weeks for the Rumble. Kathy Kelly interviewed the Poison Pixie, Candice LeRae. Nikki Cross was lurking in the background, so that was our background scene of the night. And she brings up entering the Rumble. Rhea Ripley finds this hysterical, thinking that you can win the Rumble, which fair play. And we set up a match tonight where Rhea says, I'm going to squash you like a bug. And another heel delivering on said promise, because that is exactly what she did in that match. Austin Theory walks out and pronounces the champ is here. And he brags about what he did to Rollins last week.
Let's stop. We got to talk about that. Is Vince McMahon back in charge of creative if they're teasing John Cena versus Austin Theory?
I mean, when they did the tease, that was still the Vince era. That was June that they did that. I'll be honest, like just watching that tag match with John Cena, they were so careful with John Cena that I have my doubts of him doing like a full on, like I think it's going to have to be, if he's doing a match at WrestleMania, I think it's going to be a very basic, like
he had a match with, John Cena technically had a match with The Undertaker, John.
When?
At a WrestleMania.
Yeah, they did more in that match than Cena did on that SmackDown show.
I guess I'm just saying, like they could get away with a John Cena match.
Okay, but how do you book a 3-minute John Cena match where Cena is not winning the title?
The U.S. title?
Yeah, like you don't want to put the title on this guy.
You could do it. Why couldn't you do it? You could do anything.
Well, you can't just
give him a big fight. He can lay him out, and then Theory could cheat the win.
Okay, well, it's definitely not light in my world to see Austin Theory and John Cena. But
could be a tag match,
Yeah,
it's not lighting my world either. I mean, that's the
the tag match is the option. The tag match is the option. Yes.
Yeah, I just I just don't know if they would throw a line like that out there for nothing.
No, and those have been the most. It would be calling back to, like, they shot the angle in June, like they did start it. Tag would make sense, a lot of sense. So Rollins is out. Dude, Austin Theory, I don't know what it is, but dude, the Seth freaking Rollins are just, I can't not hear them. He dropped like 8 here in 2 minutes.
Just following the style guide. He's very respectful. Yeah.
Rollins comes out on crutches, but then he removes them and he dances around like he's fine. Like he's Shawn Michaels doing a moonsault off the top after losing his smile. And then he explains, though, yeah, my knee actually isn't healed, but it will be healed by the Royal Rumble, and I'm going to win. Like, okay, this is, so his knee was hurt, then it wasn't hurt. It is hurt, but it's not going to be hurt for long.
Yeah, this part was, I don't know. I don't really quite know what to make of it. I mean, they went off air last week with, of course, that spot leading to the end of to the match, and then reportedly he was selling the injury a whole lot on the way back. Was tweeting,
didn't do house shows on the weekend,
right? Was tweeting as if he, the same tweet he sent out the last time his knee got injured in a big way, and then came out and did this. So could it be the truth? Could he legitimately have an injury, but that's not serious enough for preventing him from, I guess, dancing around, but serious enough to keep him out of action until the Rumble? Or is this all completely a work?
I guess we'll see. Like the fact he didn't do any matches over the weekend, like I don't think they would go to that extent for what isn't even really like a big angle or anything like that. So
it's a type of injury that allows you to craft a story, a match entirely around the knee injury, and allows you to dance when you're walking out and doing your entrance. But it's the type of injury that also you probably should wrestle on until the Rumble.
Bobby Lashley then returns. He speared Theory and tosses him to the floor, and they say his suspension is over and he's going to manhandle everyone in the Royal Rumble. So one thing I did like about the show is, like, you were trying to get a lot of big names announced for the Rumble, which is quickly approaching. So you are trying to put in a bunch of names to get the interest going, and important names too.
Yeah.
Rhea Ripley against Candice LeRae. Ripley just destroyed her. LeRae then stops a superplex, sneaks underneath, and gets a German off the turnbuckle. But then LeRae is caught with a reverse cross to the floor, run into the barricade, where some people isolated this clip where she's run into the barricade, and it looks like her boot caught this kid in the head. And then it looks like they have finally given a name for this Ripley submission, the prison trap. And then
no, prism.
Oh, I heard
what
prison.
She's always
prison sounds a lot. Prison trap makes a lot more sense now.
That is true. Yeah, prison trap should be what they call it. But
have they called it this before? Have they been calling
in NXT? It was the prism, I believe.
Okay, yeah. I do not recall. And then she hit the riptide.
Neither do they. It's all right.
Well, Riptide 419. Ripley destroyed her, and that was it.
Pretty emphatic win, but no one's beating Rhea Ripley right now. Like, she is going to be portrayed as the biggest threat in the women's division. She's beating men, So I think it's the type of booking that the way
she should be winning. She should be winning. Yes. Mm-hmm. Saxton catches up with Lashley, and MVP shows up, and they have business to discuss. He won't shake MVP's hand, but MVP reveals he got him reinstated on Raw, which I'm so confused. So he had been fired. Then Pierce, like that week, went on WWE.com and said he's not fired, but he was suspended.
Right.
Now his suspension has been ended by MVP.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So I guess, I guess they something tells me that maybe they regretted the wording of firing, and felt like a suspension was more appropriate for some reason.
I mean, they could have fired him, and Lashley, MVP gets his job back. They could have done that too.
Right.
Is there a difference?
I mean, I don't know, contractual laws, labor laws. Maybe they just didn't want to deal with that.
Like if you turned on me, okay, and then you enlisted Omos to make my life hell and drag me to an awful WrestleMania match and suck me into this feud for months, and then I get suspended from doing podcasts, and then they tell me, you know what, you can either wait out another 2 weeks, or Wai has, pulled some strings to get you back 2 weeks early. Be like, you know what? F that guy. He made my life hell. I'm waiting the other 2 weeks.
Well, listen, man, the holidays are a time of reflection. They're a time to just
what a great time to get suspended over the holidays. Are you kidding me?
Maybe the suspension wasn't so bad. Got to spend some extra time at home with his family, and
I wouldn't be in a rush to come back. I've had some good years on top. I'm fine for a few weeks without working.
We don't know what's going on between these guys. We don't know what their bond is, but clearly it was deep enough for them to pound fists at the end of this segment.
Well, after MVP explains that, he's trying to mend fences, he got Benjamin and Alexander into the tag team turmoil match. Lashley says, "We're good, but I'm not interested right now in a reunion." So this will be our long tease towards the Hurt Business coming back together. We will see if they can recreate the Horsemen in '98.
With Omos now, potentially. Is he a part of the equation? Is he going to be a part of the Hurt Business? I
think he has to be. It's the only role for him.
They need to all sit down and, I need to see like the big group discussion, like the intervention, between Omos and Bobby Lashley. And
it has to be Omos and Lashley sitting down.
Oh, and the Hurt Business. Poor Cedric and Shelton. I mean, Cedric and Shelton are probably just like, I don't care. I forgive you guys. Like, just, we wanted this forever.
Water under the bridge, guys.
Yeah. I forgave you, like, like an hour after you guys attacked me last time. It's fine.
Done.
Yeah. But no, I like it. And this time it looks like they'll all be baby faces.
Yeah, potentially. Then the Cody Rhodes return. It's in motion. He notes this was his first major injury, and they focus on the Hell in a Cell match. And this was really well done. Like, they had crowd reactions, stunned seeing his pec. Cody explained after a Cody cutter, he nearly vomited in the ring, which would have drastically changed his character under Vince McMahon.
That is true. He would have been a champion by now. Yeah, they would have had him come back and just, be the vomiting guy with the, weird pec.
Who was the call up that it was Aaliyah? Remember Aaliyah? She legit vomited on her debut.
Yeah. Oh man, that was amazing. Yeah. No, that doesn't get talked about.
This is the last company you want to vomit unexpectedly in. So he said he's never watched the match back, and he doesn't plan to. Said it was a bit scary what he put himself through. And there's a shot of him walking back. I am sure they're making like a DVD project on him or something like that. I can only imagine that they had cameras strapped to this guy all day long at that Hell in a Cell show.
The man is such a convincing promo that I could actually believe that he hadn't watched it, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's seen it 40 times. I mean, man, it was such a great match.
He had surgery 4 days later, and Dr. Jeffrey Dugas explained it was a muscular injury, not a tendon injury, which is good. And we heard from Brandy, and he said that, he was ashamed, that he was worried about what was next for him. He had some doubt, and the closing shot is him entering the Nightmare Factory to get back to work, and these will continue. So
I would think the Nightmare Factory.
I'm pretty sure it was. So I imagine we get one more next week, and then I think in 2 weeks, this Sunday I'm coming back, or this Saturday I'm back, and announces himself for the Rumble. I would think that's where this leads.
Yeah, I hope it's not like a Lacey Evans build where we just get 20 weeks. The Rumble's over, we still see him training.
He goes off to boot camp. The American Nightmare started with an American dream.
These have been excellent. He was already going to get a big reaction the moment he showed up, but I think they'll be 10 times bigger because of these videos. Because these are the types of videos I was expecting for the past several weeks, or the past several months, just to kind of keep him in our minds. But they're choosing to save him for the last 4 weeks, 3 weeks.
That's fine.
That's Rumble. Perfectly fine.
Yeah. And and I think worth noting, this to me is not a surprise return, and they just. Sometimes WWE and AEW, they get drunk off the surprise that no one saw this coming. It's this is not one of those. Hunter showing up in the Rumble in 2002, that would have been a bad idea to come as a surprise. Instead, you had a huge return, did a huge number. You got weeks of TV of Hunter leading up to it. You did a massive buy number for the Rumble that year.
That's a whole aspect of this that I guess it hadn't really clicked in my head until now. Cody's entire thing is trying to capture Triple H's throne. That pec tear is his quad tear. And these videos are his A Beautiful Day YouTube videos, aren't they? So, he's going to
imagine they licensed him taking the robe off and the pack, and you just Sunday, Bloody Sunday.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And
the doctor sitting down. I can't believe the news today.
Beautiful. Absolutely love it. I hope they license that. But the big kind of announcement of him returning next week, just to speak, I think will be huge. In that Rumble pop, I'd
announce him on the Philly show, the anniversary, and the Rumble's our first appearance of him. That would be how I would structure this.
I think you can have
you could do an appearance on the anniversary too.
Yeah, and then a big pop for him actually entering a match and showing off, that repaired pec. They're doing all of this perfectly.
Another Bronson Reed video, but he was brought to the show, and Saxton introduces him as a man who made a big splash in his return.
Tsunami is his finisher.
Yeah, I got it. I'm glad that Saxton connected the dots for us. The Miz cuts off Reed's answer when asked if they have each other's back, and Miz says, "You mess with one of us, you mess with both of us." And he invites Reed to be on MizTV, and Reed says, "There's no us. If you want something, pay me."
So I guess it does make sense why Bronson Reed decided to help the Miz win the money back, right? So that he could have somebody pay him.
He got a cut.
It was either, Zack Saber's TMDK or the Miz, and we'll see which was the better choice.
That is sliding doors. Zack Saber Jr. or the Miz.
More money though. Hey, we missed Dolph Zigglert in the back.
No, we didn't. He was there, and he's focused on being the best, and he's here for revenge tonight against Solo Sikoa. Mustafa Ali appears and says, "I heard from Adam Pearce that we were offered a spot in the tag team turmoil match and you declined. And you also cost me the U.S. title a few weeks ago." Ziggler's like, "Yeah, I did. I kind of suck." And he just tells Ali, "I hope you understand. I had to do this tonight. It's not about tag titles. You're on main event. You got a good thing going with Von Wagner. So see you later, Ali." So again, probably one of the most genuine human beings on this roster is poised for a nice heel run again. We're going to try that again. And it's something. Ali desperately needs something, so he'll take it. I think they have tried with him as a babyface, and I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the wrong type of material. But he's not. I don't think he's that great.
like as this babyface character. His promo here, I thought felt very kind of like poorly delivered. So I don't know, man. I don't know if a heel run is like the right type of thing for him either. Like, but he's a great wrestler, and I think we know he could be a great promo, but for some reason, just in this system, it has just not clicked for him. So we'll see. We'll see what this leads to.
It led to Solo Sikoa and Dolph Zigglert. I thought Zigglert did a nice job in this match. Solo Sikoa being out there in a singles match for 11 minutes, it did not help that this crowd, they did not buy Zigglert in this match, and they just seemed just so quiet at times here. Zigglert got he hit at one point this jumping DDT, and it's like his big hope spot, and he goes for the cover. 1, 2, kick out by Sikoa. Not a peep from this crowd. Zigglert then stops a Samoan drop. He hits the zigzag. The crowd reacts to this kick out, but then the Famouser is caught. He sends Zigglert in the air, Samoan spike, and pins him in 10:56. I just think this one went longer than it needed to.
I just thought, yeah, probably that. I just thought it was just a very average match, which was just not to say it was bad. Like Dolph Ziggler matches, I think are always good, but it's just like I don't really care that much about them. Nothing all that memorable from it either.
And then the Usos returned. They snuck back into the building to celebrate. I'm sure that will be explained, who let them back in the building. Kathy Kelly interviewed Bayley, and Michin shows up, so they beat the hell out of her and call her a fraud and a cheat, and she's left laying and really has to contemplate, why am I in a group when I'm getting beat up by myself all night long?
Oh, I mean, I guess they're Gallows and Anderson were prepping. They're probably off drinking, really.
Yeah,
the
I
whole
can find Michin chasing them down at the bar.
Yeah,
nice gun stun you took there last Wednesday. They weren't at the bar; they were getting ready for their match.
That's what I meant. Yeah, they were getting ready.
Okay.
The one key line here was to me Bayley basically saying, you shouldn't stick up for somebody who won't do the same for you. Like, so it just kind of led me to wonder if they were setting up a Michin versus Becky type of thing.
Yeah, I mean, you just put her in this group, though. It's like...
But AJ's gone. Like, without AJ, the group doesn't work. Like, you can't have a faction with Carl Anderson, Luke Gallows, and Michin. Okay, I'm sorry.
All right, let's go with the best segment of 2023 and 22 and 21 and 2020. It's MizTV. Where on tonight's MizTV, we're taking
Should I tweet this out? Should I let people know you're about to recap this?
Sure. On tonight's edition of MizTV, it's a very special edition of the show because MizTV is going to be probing the justice system. Out comes the Judgment Day. And we had a teaser of this going to break because there in the back is the Judgment Day featuring Dominik with a purple bandana around his face. And I just thought, dude, the amount of messages I got from people in the moments after this was significant. So they come out, and it's all four of them, and Miz apologizes. He does not have chairs for Priest and Finn Balor, to which Dom just says, "You always roll with your crew." And Miz tells him, what happened? What happened in jail? And Dominik looks left, and Dominik looks right, and he stares at Miz. Snitches get stitches. A line that I will forever have ingrained in my memory. And if ever there was the solidified turn of this man in my heart, it was this line, this moment that has all been building up to this segment. And he explains, or it's Balor and Rhea that tell him, it's okay. You can snitch. What happened in there? I was locked up with the world's most dangerous people. Not knowing where your next meal was going to come from? I'll tell you a story. There was only one way for me to see mommy on the other side. I had to grab Prism by the balls. Kind of like Maurice does with you, Miz. And then the story he shares is that his roommate was wanting to punch a hole in Dominik's face. Could you imagine this? So Dominik got up from his top bunk. He emphasized that he claimed the top bunk. He climbed down. He woke this man up and explained Do we have a problem? I did not think so, mister. Back to sleep. And being in jail, I truly knew how Martha Stewart felt. Dude, how this guy said this stuff with a straight face. I couldn't watch this with a straight face. And as Miz points out, that you were actually only in there for a few hours. The group gets upset and Miz backs down. Dude, to his credit, Miz was great in this segment. Like
he always is.
He made this guy, like he made this work. But dude, Dominik was, I mean, the
Mega
Golden
star.
Globes are tomorrow night and he should be everyone's right in.
Oh, goodness.
Dude, Dominik Mysterio was just fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, listen, everybody, like there's definitely a bit of sort of like, I don't know, we're laughing at him, not necessarily with him type of thing, but I mean,
Speak for yourself.
He is in on the joke now, and at this point, like all of these reactions that we're giving him are exactly what they're looking for. He is excellent at doing everything that he should be with this particular role. They are like dressing him up like this, like making him just like great, excellent meme material. But like in terms of like social media, I don't know if there's a bigger reaction like that I saw tonight than to Dominik in this getup.
Dude, that shot of him in the back was everywhere after it aired.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the way that they had, you know, a heel in the Miz be offended by Dominik's sort of line so that it justified Miz exposing Dom with the like, you know, only a few hours in prison type of thing. It was great. I mean, every Dominik segment is incredibly fun, and I thought this was very successful.
Yeah, I mean, great on them to just run with this. It's perfect. It's perfect. And it ties in with the Ray program. Like here was the family that put him in jail. Like it is the whole setup to get there. It was tremendous from Dominik and company.
So much more fun you could have with this. I mean, well, you know, they'll be going for the titles, but I mean, man, I don't know the amount of potential that you could have. Like, I want to see him actually like go to like meet up with a gang, you know?
Dude, shooting vignettes with him back in the street. I mean, they could do some great stuff with Dominik, and they so rarely do this kind of stuff. I really hope they just go all in and have.
They should do the Book of Hobbs segment, but like with Dominik.
What I've seen, the Book of Dom. Oh gosh, yeah, this was great. He's gonna be a babyface at the end of all this.
Eventually, sure, yeah.
So we ended up getting the whole third hour was the Judgment Day. It was a lot. So this tag turmoil. We start off with Finn Balor and Damian Priest against Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows. Dom trips up Carl from the floor, and this leads to Balor rolling up Carl in 10 minutes and 17 seconds. A much smoother finish this week for Carl. Balor and Priest then take on Cedric Alexander and Shelton Benjamin. They might be on good terms, but they're not there yet. That was the story here. Alexander was just, this was my one match every couple of months on Raw, so I'm going to go all out for 449. He hit the neuralizer. Crowd was not into this. Alexander gets hit with the South of Heaven and then the coup de grace, 449, and Balor and Priest advance yet again. Next is Alpha Academy, where they got the heat on Gable and built up. They pretty much positioned Alpha Academy as default babyfaces, given this pairing with Balor and Priest. So Otis gets the hot tag, which has happened before, where the crowd gets into Otis. Otis hits the discus elbow to Damian. We got a shoot. Judas Priest.
Excellent.
The caterpillar is hit, and then Otis goes to hit the Otis bomb on Balor, who pulls Gable on top of him. So Otis hits the Otis bomb, squashing Gable, but in the process, squashing Balor underneath both men. So Priest is able to pin Otis after a lariat in 443, but Balor's ribs are destroyed from taking the Otis bomb, and he can't continue. Adam Pearce is stating you either need to forfeit, and Dominik is like, come on, Finn, come on. Or Dominik can substitute for you. And the facial reaction on Dominik, he's seen a ghost, and Dominik has to go along and replace him. He is just a tremendous coward.
I understand, like, figuring out a play to kind of like put Dominik center stage. I guess it wasn't necessarily explained to me enough why Dominik all of a sudden is so timid when He's been actively tag teaming with these guys for months now. Plus, he is the only former tag team champion of any of them. He's also a fresh man after this 30-minute match. How is this at all a disadvantage? Why is he at all timid because of this?
He had his dad, and now he doesn't. Has
it stopped him from wrestling other matches?
I mean, he's a coward. He's a cowardly heel.
He wasn't before.
Well, he is now. It's a different role. There's some turns where it doesn't make sense for
prison
this one.
Changes you. Okay, enough explained. Yeah.
Well, it was. Have you ever been in prison?
Can't say I have. No.
Okay. Damian Priest and Dominik against the Street Profits. Dude, Angelo Dawkins he was tremendous in this match. Like Ford was very good too. Like this team, like just where they were a year ago versus now. Like, man, Dawkins did a tope con hero at one point here. Kevin Patrick had a good line here that there are Instagram stories longer than Dominik's time in county jail. He made sure to say county jail instead of prison. So, yeah, Dawkins hit the tope con hero. It looked fantastic. Balor is screaming in pain this whole match as he's icing his ribs. Rhea's on the floor. Yes, Dom, show him that prison aggression. Like, dude, everyone was great here. Dom goes for the 619, but Dawkins cuts him off with an elbow. And then the Street Profits do the pounce into a German by Ford in midair on Dominik, who's so small that he works great for these kinds of double team maneuvers by the Street Profits. Ford then leaps over Dominik, who is clutched over in the corner. He leaps over him with a dive over the corner post to the floor, follows with a 450 on Dom. And when Damian Priest pulls out Ford to the floor, this whole crowd was just they all were shocked that this was not the ending. They were very invested here at the end. Ford then hops to the apron, and Priest runs himself into the steps, missing Ford. Dominik from behind rolls up Ford, puts his feet on the rope with the assistance of Rhea, and pins Ford in 16-16. So Dominik, Damian, and Balor, some combination of these three, will get title shots against the Usos, who came out and held up the titles in front of the Judgment Day as the show went off the air. This tag turmoil, it was very long. It took up the whole third hour pretty much. The last match was the strongest. The others were, this crowd was not all that behind it, and it's not like it was this spectacular series of matches either. But I did enjoy the Street Profits at the end.
Yeah, built to a nice finish. I like the focus on Dominik between, the MizTV segment to the closing moments of this match. Dominik came out of this show really feeling like a central figure of WWE Raw in its entirety, and I thought that was a wonderful thing. I'm very curious to see how they book that tag team match. You're talking about two heel factions. How is that going to look like? I have to imagine Dominik, is one of the people that will be actively in the match. Maybe they'll shoot some vignettes about, Balor, assuming that as leader, or I don't know, longest tenured person that he's going to take over, but maybe Dominik is going to vie for it. Maybe that'll be some tension. Who knows? But yeah, a lot of good attention and focus put on Dominik Mysterio tonight. Yeah.
I don't know what it says that Dominik is like the most interesting thing on Raw, what that entails, but he is for me at the moment. Mm-hmm. What I liked about the show, I did like the emphasis on the Rumble and starting to get some names attached, because we've got two episodes to build up the Rumble, and this typically happens each year where they just assume that the Rumble sells itself and it's just this big, just everyone's in it and there aren't like a whole lot of stories going into it. I do hope like we get some promos from people and what winning the Rumble means. This is Hunter's first chance to truly book like the Rumble buildup, and one of those shows is the anniversary show. So that's that's going to have all your legends over it as well. So it's a lot of stuff they have to push over the next 3 weeks.
Yeah, agreed. I hope a lot of the storylines that they're setting up right now play into the Rumble itself. But beyond that, I thought it was a pretty dull edition of Raw. I didn't think that there was much great wrestling to speak of. Most of it to me was quite forgettable. Anything to do with the Bloodline and Kevin Owens, I didn't think was all that significant for this particular show. What else
This
we
is
got?
this is such a distinction right now between SmackDown and Raw. It's like everything is geared towards Owens and Zayn on SmackDown, and it's like this every week. Like the big matches, it feels like, are on SmackDown.
Yeah. The Alexa Bliss thing to me was just
Lame.
like a waste with Uncle Howdy. I don't know. Some other stuff happened. Lashley and MVP getting back together, that's kind of significant. The Cody video I thought was very good.
Yep, the Cody. This show desperately needs Cody back.
Agreed.
Desperately.
Yeah, agreed.
So there you have it. Those were our thoughts on Raw. And if you have any super chats or feedback, we're going to finish off the show with you, the listener.
Let's go to the forum.postwrestling.com. John, would you like to start us off?
Muggin is the first one here. The final hour of Raw was carried very well by the Judgment Day, and the tag team Turmoil going up against the Usos leaves nobody to root for. Heel versus heel matches can work, but putting it on Raw's 30th anniversary in 2 weeks makes a lot of sense, with Philadelphia being a smart wrestling city, and they'll be hot for the match. I bet Edge and Beth will make their return there to get their receipt. The Raw tag titles being up for grabs does provide a chance to split up the tag titles, and that's worth keeping an eye on.
Yeah, that is interesting. Do they go with the Bloodline having all the belts all the way up until WrestleMania, or can the Usos drop them? Does the reign still? The reign is registered for what, the SmackDown championships, right? That's their record, right?
Yes.
So they could lose the Raw championships and still hold or continue their record. So yeah, perhaps. Let's go to Alex in Portland, who says, "What a terrible show. Did Raw come to us from Antarctica? The crowd felt so cold, but I don't blame them. Opening the show with a Baron Corbin match, no thanks. Bronson Reed comes across like a generic heavy. I feel like his win over Okada last year doesn't mean much anymore." Not on Raw, does it? It means nothing.
Yeah, Kevin Patrick forgot to bring that up.
Yeah. Maybe if Michael Cole was calling the show, he would have went through all the G1 results, perhaps. But
an honorary TMDK member? It's Jonah. I'm sorry, Bronson.
Yeah, it means nothing on Raw. Michin really got her ass handed to her. Was there any real reason she couldn't have been around Gallows and Anderson at all tonight?
They could be splitting her. I mean, why not?
I think that's kind of likely. Without AJ, that group just does not work. Uncle Howdy and Alexa Bliss came across as kind of lame. I'm more interested in seeing this MVP Lashley story. The best part of the show was seeing main event Dominik get a tag title shot. If Jeff Jarrett can get over as a credible tag team challenger, so can Dom. Dom won the tag team championships with his dad. He's the most credible tag team wrestler of any of them.
Yes. I don't think that's as big an issue. All right. Well, thanks, folks, for the feedback and for tuning in tonight to Rewind to Raw. Tuesday night, Post Wrestling Cafe members, we will be dropping Rewind Away number 123, covering WrestleMania 8 from April of 1992, headlined by Money Incorporated against Earthquake and Typhoon, among many matches. Wait, where are you at on WrestleMania 8?
I have an hour left. I just finished Flair versus Savage.
Okay.
So, I mean, Sid Justice, Hulk Hogan, here I come.
Do you think it's going to be Hulk Hogan's last match?
Something tells me he'll be wrestling for like 15 more years.
Yeah, man, they when business was down, my goodness, they're teasing Hulk Hogan's retirement, nude photos, blood.
Jeez.
I mean, they just we got to use everything we've got. It's WrestleMania 8 from the Hoosier Dome in Indianapolis, Indiana. So there you have it. PostWrestlingCafe.com, $6 gets you in the door. Bonus shows this week with the WrestleMania 8 review and Hard to Kill coming at you Friday night with myself and John Cena. And Way and I will also be chatting with you Wednesday night, 10 Eastern, right after Dynamite from Inglewood, California at the Forum, and talking about what should be a tremendous wrestling show on Wednesday night.
Yeah. Does Mercedes Moné show up? Let us know in the comments.
All right. Thanks, everyone, for joining us, and have a great night.